Let's see. All right, let me get full screen here. Trevor, man, what is going on?
How are you, Justin?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, man, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I'm so glad for you coming on the podcast. I wish you were face to face, but this is second best. So you just how long ago did you finish your trip across country? What you're from? Yeah.
I entered Mexico, I think the first Friday of October. Yeah,
uh,
which is a crazy thing to say, like, yeah.
Okay. So let's just start this whole thing over. When did you um think about this trip, or what was the planning involved? How long ago?
Yeah, that's really the question, man, because I've kind of just I've been lucky enough to do so many disciplines on all different bikes, and I have never like traveled from my bike, which just seems crazy, just like growing up riding BMX, racing mountain bikes, racing road, dabbled in cross, all sorts of stuff and downhill and everything. And I don't know how I don't know, touring never found me, even though I was traveling with my bike in a car, just never from my bike. And in 2017, I cut my fingers off on a table saw, and you know and immediately, being the bike nerds that we are, like, the first thing I'm thinking of is that I'm never going to be able to like grab the mountain bike brake lever the same ever again, and out of all my injuries, that was probably like one of the darkest injuries that I've ever been through. And um, during that time, it was a month before my wedding, as a side note, man, kudos to my wife for sitting through that one. uh, I found the website Warm Showers maybe a year before that randomly, and Warm Showers is a bike touring hosting website. And since I was laid up and I couldn't ride and my hand's dead, um, I started hosting on Warm Showers. There's tons of guests coming because I live right along the Ohio to Erie Trail, and something kind of sparked, and I was like, all right, if I'm not going to really race or do anything like that, I want to ride, and camp and travel with my bike. And so it kind of sparked from there. I didn't think I was fit enough to do the Great Divide. I would just see like the race and how those are like super athletes, and they're just doing it in crazy times. But I didn't really realize that you can just take your time and have a good time and sort of have a vacation on your bike. So this was all starting about 3 years ago, and I had to work super hard to button up a bunch of projects and just sort of like give myself the time to take off and do this big trip. Which when I started, I thought it was going to be like 20 or 30 days, and then I was realistic, and I kind of wanted to just take my time. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll give myself like 45 days, and I even booked my return flight for 45 days. And like halfway through, I'm like, I'm not rushing this thing. Like, I just canceled my flight and just let it be whatever it was, man. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like almost 3 years in the making.
Wow. So 3 hard years, or was kind of like, all right, I need to work on this because it's 3 years out. Like, is it like the first year that you were doing like preparing? Is that like I got to get a lot of stuff in three? Is 3 years a tight time, or you kind of gave yourself a lot of time?
3 years of like lifetime. It was tough. We just got married. My wife started grad school. I was like selling our house that we moved out of in Dayton. And I was like renovating the house, recovering from a hand injury. My work was like super sporadic, so money wasn't fantastic. And I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this, and I just, never kind of quit thinking about it. And there's plenty of outs. Like, I was telling some people on the route that like getting to the start was harder than even riding the whole ride. Like, it's just like when life gets in the way and it really, really, really tests you, you just sort of push through it,
Yeah.
and eventually it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure, man. We can it's the hard things in life. I don't know if you know who David Goggins is, or there's some
Absolutely.
other people who are like the hard things you remember. It's the easy things that you're kind of like, yeah, I kind of remember doing that. But the hard things that push you will always stick with you no matter what.
100%.
So, did you already have a bike? Did you have to set up a bike? What kind of preparation, along with like, what was the most you things you had to prep for?
Yeah, I did not have a bike. And I was kind of in the market to build something new. I wanted to I want to be able to ride to the mountain bike trails and then ride the trails on the road, ride the trails and then ride home. And I was between kind of the Curve GMX Plus and the Rodeo Labs Trail Donkey, and I just really love what those guys are doing over at Rodeo Labs, and so I went with that. And I built that up last year, and I built it like really like in the heart of the pandemic, and I'm so grateful and lucky that I got the parts when I did, because there's just so many people that are like still waiting to build their bike, still waiting on
Yeah.
parts, and I got it at like the last minute. I'm not totally sure if I didn't build that thing last year that I would have gone. And so a couple friends really helped me make that happen. So yeah, I appreciate those friends a lot. Yeah.
So, what kind of fitness were you in, and what did you have to get in for that?
I like absorbed as much content as I could to just prepare myself mentally. And I read some comment from some guy on the Great Divide Facebook group that said, um, the first time I did this, I was in fantastic shape and it totally killed me. The second time I did this, I was in terrible shape and I was in incredible mental shape and I had a wonderful time. And I really took that to heart. And at the time, I was just working super hard that I basically trained when I started at the border.
Yeah.
I was going on mild rides, but no centuries, nothing big. And matter of fact, like my bike wasn't even totally ironed out when I got to Whitefish Bike Retreat in Montana. I was still like soldering wires on my dynamo hub and like changing things around. And like, yeah, it was pretty madness. But I mean, just it all works out.
Yeah. That's insane. So, how many miles were you averaging? Did you have every day? It was like, hey, I need to do 20, 30, whatever. I don't even know the numbers, but like, I need to do 30 miles today, and then tomorrow I need to do 50. Or I know you said a date where, hey, it's only gonna be 45. It's gonna be 45 days. Let's just do 20, or let's do 15. Call it a day. I don't know your numbers. I'm just kind of ballparking here.
Yeah, I knew that there would be days that are really hard and days that weren't as hard, and what constitutes hard. Like I think that's different for everybody. Like when I started, it was that crazy oppressive heat from the heat dome in the Northwest. I think it was 104 on the first day that I started. And so you're like every single lake that you're passing, you're swimming in a lake just to cool off from this crazy heat.
Wow.
So right away I was kind of like, oh boy, I better check my, expectations with daily mileage. And it ended up being like everywhere from 30, 70, 90, 100. Like it was just totally different all the time. And at the time it felt really frustrating, like I felt like, oh, I need to go faster, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then like eventually you let go and you're like, nah man, this thing's steering you exactly where you need to go. And yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it, but just the timing of some of the moments on the trip were just so serendipitous and incredible. Like if I would have gone faster, I would have never met this entire group of like amazing people. Or if I would have gone slower at one point, like, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was some serious magic happening, I guess, if I can say the M word.
Yeah, I feel, I might be kind of getting kind of spiritual, however you want to call it here, but everything or every person that comes in your life, or however you want to put it, that you're there at that moment for that reason. And
That's right.
you kind of got to think about that sometimes. Stop and reflect. I arrived with this guy named Chris, who's probably going to come on next week or so. And he's just been like super humbling, kind of a mentor to me, like just about life. And I'm just like, where'd this guy come from? And
Yeah.
it's just kind of amazing.
Right. Right. And you're not even looking for it. It just shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man.
So, first I want to say, go to your Instagram, and well, anybody go to your Instagram's amazing. I was looking at it yesterday. I was like, man, these are some amazing pictures. Is it just at your name at Trevor Gay?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So there's go to his Instagram, look at some of his stuff. It's pretty amazing. So how far in did you first have like a mental like it was all right, this is mentally challenging, not so much physically, but mentally.
Well, the complication were all the fires, like, I mean, it was so bad that somebody like Leo Wilcox had to quit, and,
Wow.
and a bunch of us were out on the trail when it happened, and it really shook us up. But for me, it was like the first day. I was super nervous about this fire reroute that Cricket at Whitefish Bike Retreat, and thank you, Cricket. I just have to say thank you. Um, that she put me on that kept me off the road, but I wasn't familiar with it at all. So I was just kind of like trucking down the road, not really sure what I was coming up on. I could review everything about like the normal route. I couldn't review this fire reroute. She gave it to me like the morning of, and I was trying to be kind of ambitious and be like, yeah, my first day I can give it a good day, like whatever. And I ended up on this crazy climb at sunset. What is the name of that? I don't know, but it's not far. It's in between Whitefish and the border, and this mountain man comes out like I thought he was a bear, and this dude comes out of the bushes, and I stop and I'm just like looking at him, and there was just so much to look at. He's got like this Pirates of the Caribbean like white button-up shirt, some crazy like pendants around his neck, and these black pirate-looking pants. And I'm just like looking him up and down. I'm like, wow, like what's up, man? And I was like, what are you doing? And he had a bucket attached to his belt. And here he was huckleberry hunting, and
Ah,
he started asking me about what I was doing, and he's like, "You got pistols?" And I was like, "No." And he looks down, and he's like, "They come at you so fast that I got two pistols. That way you don't have to reload." And I'm like looking down at my bear spray, and I'm like, "All right, cool, man. The sun's about to go down, and I have no idea where I am." And I'm like,
yeah.
so that sort of checked me. I didn't get much sleep the first night, um, and then I think it was probably about a week in, I can remember having like 2 mental meltdowns, and they were
Really?
just full-blown meltdowns, like, and I was alone for both of them. I hope I was alone. There's probably somebody heard me, but, like, God, they were terrible. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, yeah, there's this lady who's a ultra runner, and I can't think of her name. When I find it, I'll send you a text. But she ran with like a lady part of the way, and she stopped, and like she took a nap, and she took a nap for like 2 minutes, maybe a minute, and then she's like, "How long was I asleep?" She's like, "A minute." She goes, "Why'd you let me sleep so long?" And she started having a breakdown. But, lady's like, "What? You only slept a minute?" But she said that her mind was so far different that she thought she slept 8 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I pushed it that hard. Maybe later in the trip, I had some, like, big days that were, like, 120 miles and, like, I don't know, something silly, like, I don't know, like 14 or 15 hours of riding or something, but Um, I kind of specifically went into this ride not wanting to treat it like the racers do, and I really thought about racing it, and training for it. And I was like, that's not what I'm after right now. I was kind of in a tough space with like my mental health, and just kind of want to like reinvigorate my love for riding, and sometimes it's sort of like a push to go, ride your local spot. And this was different. I didn't want to like not let myself have time to stop for the view or to stop at that restaurant, or if somebody invites me to go somewhere, just to like let it happen. And for me, that was like one of the most important things that happened on the whole thing, was that I just allowed the time, and I pushed it when I wanted to, and I pushed it when it seemed fun or appropriate. But yeah, and it's like, everybody talks about mileage and miles, and it started to make me like nauseous on the trip, like, what watts are you putting down, and like, how
Yeah,
far, and this and that. And I'm like, man, like, did you see that pack of gazelles, or those
yeah,
pronghorns? And like, it's a different thing. It was really cool.
yeah. Yeah, it's kinda like some people who are on Strava, and they're like, "Get out of my way." I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Man, we're out here, we're enjoying this, let's enjoy this."
Yeah.
I get it, I wanna be king of the mountain sometimes, but I I'm not gonna just blow somebody off the trail or anything.
Right.
So 2 things. How many miles was it? And then what kinda, like, recovery are you doing per day throughout the day? Or what kinda supplements were you taking?
Great question. In total, it's about 2,500 miles. The border was closed, so I did not start in Banff, which is the actual start. I started at the border in Rooseville, Montana, Rooseville, Eureka. It's about 150,000 feet of climbing, and I didn't really know what to expect, just because I've never ridden my bike that hard every day for 2 months, so, like, I had no idea how to recover and how to, um and I figured I would just listen, and when the time came, I would kinda take breaks. Well, That unexpectedly came, man. I did a fire reroute and ended up in Dillon, Montana, and I was just like trucking it into town, and it was like this amazing sunset. It was like almost ethereal. I'm like looking around, and it was like this cotton candy sunset all around me, and I was just like hauling, like going 20 some mile an hour on like a loaded bike, and I was like, felt invincible. And I got a hotel room, and I like kind of celebrated. It was like a big day. Um, I just rode like Fleecer Ridge the morning, and it was really that's like the steepest descent on the route, and so it's super fun. Get into Dillon, and I knew I had to wake up early to leave and beat the heat. It was just insane there too. And I left, and I was just like, "Ooh, feel kind of tired. Like this is interesting." And then it was like a half an hour later, I just couldn't pedal. Like it just stopped working, and I'm like, oh boy, like this is not good, like kind of checked myself, and I pulled over and I had another snack, even though I had a big breakfast and it was still early in the day. And um, it took me, what was that? It was either like 6 or 8 hours to go 14 miles. And I was just
Wow.
like about to lose it. That was my first instance of, I was like, I'm just going to turn around and go back to Dillon and like go to sleep for a day or two, or just feel it out. So I went back and I stayed for 2 days. And that was like the first moment of the trip where I was like, it's okay to like do whatever you want. Like I felt like you got to ride every day. You have to put in big miles like this and that. I was like, nah, man, don't do that. Like just, treat your body well. And so I rested and took off. And I think it was 2 days later. And I was like, oh my God, this climb feels so much better. Like it was fantastic. And I wasn't about to just like lose my mind. So after that, I was really sensitive. And I think it was still only like, every 5 days or so, I would either just have a short day or take a day off. Um, but later into the trip, I found a bunch of people to hang out with and ride with, and organically we just end up doing kind of fun things, and would stop here and there, stop at like Brush Mountain Lodge, and take a down day there, a zero as everybody calls it. So yeah, I just kind of learn as I go. Like I'd never done a 2,500-mile trip, and I didn't know what to expect on recovery and any of that. I thought, yeah, well, maybe I could just keep going. Nah, not so much.
Were you taking any Recoverate or anything like that
Yeah,
for
I
re
used, let's see, I ran out of it halfway through, and I really noticed it. I'm a plant-based guy, and there's a supplement called Complement, and it's like
Okay.
a vitamin D, K, DHEA, like all the omegas. And especially I really wanted that for like my brain and my mood, and just overall function. I was taking that, but I didn't bring enough for the whole trip, and I really meant to mail drop myself that, and I paid for it by not. Um, I had magnesium. I took that internally, like little capsules, and then um, yeah. In the beginning of the trip, I had some Tailwind recovery powders, and
Yeah.
that seemed to
Yeah.
help a lot. Just to like get the carbs like right away while you're setting up camp and all that. Yeah, but I kept it pretty simple, and I don't really keep it that simple at home, so it's nice to sort of break away from a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, I got actually that Trailwind now, and I like it. I used to do Recover, but I just wanna try something different, and the Tailwind's good.
Yeah,
Um,
doesn't hurt my stomach. I can drink it like
yeah,
all day, and yeah, yeah, that endurance fuel. They got the orange. Yeah.
okay. I like, like, the, Infinite Speed if I'm just gonna ride for 2 hours, but then I tried their other stuff for a longer, and it did not sit well with me. And they were like, "Yeah, for bike rides, it's not good mountain bike because 'cause you're up and down, and it kinda shakes in your stomach."
Yeah.
I So, I had to switch on that.
And a lot of those fuels just, you don't metabolize them that right or that well, and they're hard
Yeah,
on your stomach, they're hard to process, they're hard to get in your system, and that's like one of the big challenges of any race or trip or ride like that where you're riding every day is like getting fuels that like don't mess you up, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I was grateful for those.
Yeah, I used to do the, gels like it was nothing, and then I was like, I just feel like that they can't be the best for you," and then I just stopped completely. Every blue moon or something, I'll have one, but yeah, I completely gone. What about what's the Stinger waffle?
Oh
Fan or no
yeah,
fan?
yeah.
Those are
Yeah, those
good.
are good. I try
Yeah.
and treat those like a dessert, man. They're really tasty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, you get down to Mexico. Are you just kinda, like, exhausted?
No. Man, everybody
Really?
like, these people I'd meet were, like, joking, like, "Oh, you gotta turn around and go back up," and I'm like, "If I had the time, I would just turn around right now and just ride right back up to Montana." Um, yeah, I think that's I am disappointed that I didn't get to train, but it really showed the progression of my fitness along the whole route of, like, by the time like, my last 3 days on the route were over 100 miles and, pretty uncomfortable as term of like just like it was pretty climby, it's pretty techy. And I felt fantastic when I got to Mexico. I was like, man, I was buzzing. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. And I don't think it was I didn't really want to finish. So I know I wasn't like buzzing on the fact that I was done. I was excited to see my family and I really wanted to go home and just kind of check in with everybody and touch base. But like, yeah, I felt pretty good at the end.
So, how did you how many pairs of clothes or how did you wash your clothes? And then, people always talk about your I'll say your under area getting sore. How did that hold up?
Well, so, I'm not picking on them, but, maybe I'll just leave their name out because it's not really fair. These shorts aren't really meant for this. But I there's a hip up and coming apparel brand, and I got a pair of their bibs, and it just did not work. And my butt was so freaking sore. And when I got to Jackson, Wyoming, I had a pair of Pearl Izumis waiting from a friend of mine, and it just changed night and day. Like my mileage like doubled because I was so much more comfortable after that. So I was just like constantly the key to saddle sores, man, is like just keeping your area clean and it doesn't matter gender. So whether it be like, bathing every day with a rag or just dipping in a creek and sort of like rinsing off. But it's like the bacteria that forms on your skin is really, getting your pores infected and more gross things, from chafing or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And so like chamois cream, keeping your clothes
Mhm.
clean, using like first aid ointment if you get a sore and just like, get it right away. Cause that can stop you and just like paralyze you on your bike. Like it's just so painful when you get a bad one of those. Fortunately, it only happened like a couple short durations, but man, I remember riding with this guy and it was so painful. And it was like my sit bone and this like little sore that like I couldn't even like engage in the conversation. I was just like, 30 minutes later, I'm like, I hear you, man, but this hurts so bad. I can't even like see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've, rode I think we did, like, a three-day mountain bike trip, and I had the chamois stuff. I was fine the first 2 days, but then the 3rd day, it came full, and I was like, "Let me put the chamois stuff." But what happened was already gone off, and put it on there, and it was burned so bad, like, I'm,
Oh
like,
yeah.
tearing, like, I'm basically just I'm hurting, but then once it kinda settled in, I was fine, but they're like, "Are you ready to ride?" I'm like, "You're gonna have to give me, like" I don't know how long, it's gonna be at least an hour, and then but finally, it kinda, like, I guess it was basically just soaking into my raw skin in a sense, but, after a while, it was good, but, yeah, once you put that on after you're raw, it's bad news.
It's so bad. Yeah, and it's usually like what on the side of the road or the side of the trail, and somebody's like around you, and just like, oh
Yeah.
my god, this is so bad. Yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I took I took basically two changes of clothes. One was sort of like a speed kit, if you will. It was like a traditional jersey and shorts, and then I had like my casual, which was like a pair of outdoor research, like stretchy, just regular trail shorts. I was in a t-shirt most of the way, and then I had a rain kit with rain pants, raincoat, and waterproof gloves, like two pairs of socks and a pair of long underwear. And there's kind of a system to that stuff. Like you never really want to like sleep in your sleeping bag all dirty and nasty. So you just sort of have like a sleep kit, like a long underwear shirt, long underwear you get in your sleeping bag and put the separate pair of socks on. And then that lets you like wash your clothes in the river or something and dry them overnight. But it kept it pretty simple. So it's really just two pairs of clothes, two pairs of socks, um, one extra pair of underwear. Yeah, not much extra.
Damn. I don't there's part of me that wants to do this, but there's also a part that says, well, that's not you have nothing, you can't do it. Not can't do it, just don't wanna even, like, build that up. But it
It you know what, man? I kind of felt like I said the same to myself, and I saw every type of person out there. Like, there's a guy riding with us who was 72. He's a dentist.
wow.
A few women and men, all in their 70s. There's a guy behind me who was in his 20s from New York City, and it wasn't super fit. And then there's guys who are just like absolute monsters, like just crushing it and treating it kind of like their own, like time trial. And so it's like there's so many people that were like, "Oh man, I could never do that." And I'm like, I kind of said the same thing to myself. I was just like, "I'm
Yeah,
gonna do this. I don't care how bad it hurts." Well, it turns out it's really not that bad. Like, you know, um, I think it's what is it, the McCall's book. Um, there's a book that's a great breakdown on the whole route on the divide, and he breaks the days down into like 35-mile chunks. So like, granted, it takes you a while, but like it's just an amazing part of our country, and
yeah.
it's not like it's just absolutely terrible. Sometimes you're climbing for a couple hours, but it's not that steep. And to some people that sounds terrible, but once you're in it and you're doing it, you're in the zone. It's not even about you kind of get fit while you're riding. And I definitely should have trained more, but I couldn't and I didn't. And I just wanted to not postpone anymore. And so yeah.
Way to go, man. It's huge accomplishment. Hats off to you. Have you ever done or considered what do they call it? The 6 day, it's like, the somewhere up in, like, British Columbia 6 day race? I think it's a mountain bike
Oh
race.
yeah,
Have you
what's
done
the
that
name
or
of that? I haven't, but I've heard about it. Yeah, and I love the sound of
yeah,
that. Man, I gotta be honest and real. To all those people that ride in the Northwest, grizzly bear territory is no joke, man. You think you're at the top of the food chain? I'm from Ohio, and I've traveled everywhere, and I've ridden all sorts of mountains, and I've almost ran into black bears and their cubs on like gravity runs. But like, man, camping in grizzly bear country is just wild. Like,
yeah.
yeah, they're huge. You have to be super respectful and like have a bell on your bike, and we're screaming "Hey bear" and this and that. So like races like that, man, like they make me think first. Like that one in BC. And I say that, but I'd probably still do it. Yeah, it's probably amazing.
Yeah, I was riding in Utah, and this, lady and her husband or the guy she was with, they had bells on their bikes. I'm like, "Man," and I've never been around that. I'm like, "This is the most annoying people," but I didn't have it for me to say anything, and then finally I just couldn't. I go, "Why do you have that bell?" And they're like, "Oh, we're from the Pacific Northwest, and that they actually have bells at the trailhead because of bears." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was about to say, "Can you please take that off?" But then once they told me, I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, please turn that
But
on.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
keep that on, keep that on. So
yeah,
you've done all kinds of racing, like, you and Josh Patton, who's been on the podcast, were downhill teammates,
that's
which
right.
is,
Yeah.
um, interesting, which I didn't know until I looked, a couple days ago. So where'd you start cycling or mountain biking or however, and then how'd you get to downhill? And where did you ride downhill? Sorry, that was a
Yeah.
lot. That was a
Yeah,
lot there.
living in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So I started my career working at the BMX company DK Bicycles. I did that
Oh,
for a
okay.
long
Yeah.
time, from like age 16 to like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. And at one point, DK sold to Huffy Corporation, and Huffy had owned the brand Airborne, which back in the day was like a cool titanium brand, and Huffy tried something different with it, and then they put it like kind of under our watch to refresh the brand and make it cool again and relevant. And we did that. And they had like zero budget to flow people frames, to make a team, to do any of this. So we sort of just like took it upon ourselves to, be that. And I was like, you know what? We're gonna race downhill and learn it and have fun with this. And at first it was just sort of like testing the product and having fun with it. And then
Mhm.
I was like, I'm definitely racing. Like I've always wanted to race downhill. So every single race, man, like I would train fitness wise, at home and go on road rides and, quote unquote enduro rides, but I'd basically be practicing at the races, and it just sort of worked, and I wasn't
Yeah.
really, one of the fast guys, but Josh certainly was. And at least he had like Lindsey Wilson to ride at. But Yeah, it was fun. And then, yeah, like you said, like all sorts of disciplines. And yeah, I don't know, man. I have fun in two wheels, and like whether it be
Yeah.
motorcycles or bicycles. But oof, if you love motorcycles and bicycles, that's like downhill right there. Like yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fun. Yeah,
Yeah. I definitely like riding, dirt bikes. I don't have one, but man, I definitely enjoy it. So, where did you guys snowshoe mostly for downhill?
yeah,
For racing, I guess you'd say?
yeah. It was the whole Gravity E series, and I got a few of the Eastern States Cup races in, but those are mostly, like 20-hour drive for me up in the way
Yeah.
northeast. So Gravity Series, which was all over the East Coast, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, New York, all over, and took it out to California a little bit. Always went to Sea Otter, which isn't really, it's more like a BMX race on mountain bikes, which is sweet,
Yeah.
and then a little bit in Colorado. But yeah, I mean, just anywhere there was a mountain and we could get to, like we were riding that. It's super fun.
Do you think downhill now is way more gnarly track-wise or more, groomed? Just your opinion.
I don't think it's changed much. I mean, it's
Okay.
just like every time you see one, you're just like, these guys just crushing it on wet routes that are just
Yeah.
like impossible for us, mortals to ride on. And they're just like insane times. Yeah. So I think there's some tracks that are like groomed, but it doesn't mean anybody's like, that means they're just going faster, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but I kind of thought that, the rise of enduro would kill the downhill bike, and it hasn't yet,
No.
and I think it's the crowds are building at all the downhill races. It's fun to see, and nah, man, they just keep pushing it faster and faster. It's crazy.
Yeah, I guess I should be careful. I don't wanna say groomed as in, like, groomed, but, like, I guess more wide open or m open
Yeah,
path. I'm not
versus
gonna
like
try.
technical, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna, like, you know, put down downhill. It's still gnarly as can be.
Yeah.
So a couple other things that I wanted to talk about is, well, you live in a tiny house.
That's
I do
right.
you call it that?
Yeah,
You
we do.
say,
There's
"Hey."
nothing else to call it other than like, a little house, and it just doesn't make sense to say it, so we call it the tiny house, yeah.
So, yeah, once again, I was looking at your Instagram and I saw some of the builds. So what led to that? Well, I guess I kinda know, but I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, I was living in Cincinnati at the time, and driving to work was like an hour each way, and I ended up in Cincinnati with a girlfriend, and we were starting to split up, and I would just go home every day, and I'd like start turning the TV on, and I would get home too late to do stuff or ride, or and my motivation was just sinking from stress from work, and I'd just look around and I'm like, man, like I don't use the house, and like all I want to do is travel. Like, what's the point of this? And nothing came of it. But I remember finding this article on Facebook, and it was like, man converts shed into like some bougie house or something. You're like, oh, what's this? And some clickbait thing. And I read it, and I was like, whoa. And it sort of just opened my universe. And I was just like, you know what? Like that sounds awesome. So fast forward, I met my girlfriend, who is my wife. And I bought a house in Dayton. This was maybe a year or two later, and we just didn't have much furniture. I was kind of doing my thing. I was racing and working a lot, and I look around and I'm like, we don't even have like a spare bedroom set of furniture. Nothing's in the basement. We had an old table from her old place, like as a kitchen table, and I'm like, we use like the bedroom, the kitchen, the bathroom, and we eat in the family room, and I'm in the garage. I'm like, what is the point of this? But like, how do you bring that up to a young 20-something-year-old girl who like wants her closet full of clothes and like all your
Mhm.
stuff and like literally your stuff. And I found this cool design that like checked all my boxes, tiny house design, and I like showed it to Mary, and I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And she was like, that's cool. And I was like, all right, chill. Like, don't say anymore.
Yeah.
So then the next day I was like, you know what? Like, I got to tell you, like, I really want to do this. I want to try this. Like, what do you think? And we talked about it for a minute. And she's like, all right, you got a plan? And I was like, yeah, I think I got a plan. And so I think it was like, I don't know, 6 to 8 months later, we had a trailer and we were starting our build, and it was December of 2014, and we finished it in March or May of 2015. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
But you're on a like a nice piece of land too, right?
Yep, my parents have a little, animal sanctuary in, southeast of Dayton in Ohio, and, we're lucky enough to be situated at the back of the property, which is, like, at the corner of a state park. It's super beautiful. We have space to spread out, and, we lived there for 5 years. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I'm kinda in the same boat as you. So I live in an apartment here in Bentonville, but so when I moved here, I took the job. This is I don't know. Anyway, I'll tell the story. So I moved here, I took the job, but like, my stuff due to people moving across country wasn't gonna come for 2 months. So alls I had was I packed my TV, I bought an office chair here, I bought a bed when I got here, even though I had a bed back there. And, I get here, I'm just kinda like, "Man, this is it." And then just some of my clothes, I didn't have a lot. And, and then my stuff came, I was like, I don't need any of this. I'm good."
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just kinda like, now I have it, and I'm just like, I don't use this couch. I might on it every now and then if I'm just like, "Alright, I'm done for the night." But I'm doing this podcast and whatever, and I still have a work and email, so I'm just like sitting literally at, like, my kitchen table or counter, so I'm just like, I see that, I don't really need it. So and then, that made me think of van life, and then you've been in a van traveling. So do you think that had some aspect of it?
What do I what do I think
Well,
of van travel?
no, no, I'm saying, do you think when you were, like, traveling around a van that kinda had an aspect of, maybe that's in a weird way, maybe that's like, "Well, I lived in a van with very little. I don't need a h I can live in a house with the same."
It was actually the opposite.
Oh.
The tiny house came first. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
as if it wasn't small enough, right?
Yeah,
Um, no, we were just like, yeah, for our anniversary and like our annual trips, like, that were non-bike related, it was always camping,
yeah,
and just the van thing just checks so many boxes. And I know that, like everybody's doing it, and there's like these $200,000 vans that are selling in minutes, and that's insane.
yeah,
But it is a pretty amazing way to travel, like,
yeah,
it fits in a parking space. You just pull over and your bed's right there. And if you have kind of a stealth setup, like nobody knows that you're like RVing, like
yeah,
they get an idea, and things are more popular now, but like the kitchen, your clothes, your bikes, like everything you're out to do on the adventure is like right there with you.
mhm,
And, you know, I see a lot of people on Instagram kind of hating on like these people that like park in these really sexy spots, and they're like, how often does this really happen? It happens every damn time I take my van out. You know what I mean? Like that's the
yeah,
point. Like, you go find
right,
these cool spots, and they're hard to find. I wouldn't say that like living in a van would be easy. We haven't lived full time, but we've taken long trips in it. But man, is it a cool way to live? And I mean, like,
yeah,
you adapt, you change. It's the same as like living in a tiny apartment in New York. Like, it's not the same as living in a van. It's not the same as living in the suburbs. It's all different. And I think you just adapt to wherever you're at.
yep, yeah, so I just got a Sprinter, no
Yeah,
one's
man.
really seen it yet, so I'll do a video soon. But,
Yes.
yeah, I'm pretty pumped on going on some trips, and it's kinda set up. If anybody's watched, 2 episodes ago of the podcast, you can do an episode from I can record from there, so it's perfect.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
what are your plans with it? Are you going to build it out, or like, put anything in it?
so that table actually that we sat at is telescoping, so it goes down, and then that's your bed. You can do all that, and then it has a second row of seats in it, like the Mercedes seats, and then I could take that out and then put like a or a shower. I haven't gone through that yet. So I don't know. That I go. I mean, I'm every day. It's in my mind every day.
Yeah.
And, but for now, it's perfect because I can raise a table up, sit people across, we can chit chat, and then when they're on, I can put everything in the, cubbies, and then I could lay down and call it a night.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
it yeah, like, it doesn't have a kitchen, which would be nice, but, heck, maybe just get, like, a pop-up tent for now and see what happens, I don't know. But, yeah, there's There's some plans. There's something maybe, hopefully, we'll see what happens.
I
But,
love that. Congrats, man. That's
I
awesome.
know. I got a smoking deal. Shout out to my buddy Christian. I mean, because I would send him. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what do you think of that?" And he called me. Just he didn't reply. He just called me. He's like, "Hey, man, uh, I'll sell you mine." And I'm like, "Ah, yeah, right." And then we talked over price. I'm like, "Sold. Let's go." And at first, and then it was kind of surreal to me because I'm driving it. And I'm like, "Do I really have this right now? Like,
Yeah.
I have this." I'm like, "Holy smokes!" Now I need to really like think about this thing a little different. And but they're so fun to drive. Like I was surprised by that. And people always want to check it out. Like
Yeah,
here in
always.
Denville, I just drove it just literally just a couple of miles. My buddy Chris, who I was talking about earlier, wanted to see it. And then we pull in the parking lot, and like it's like I was like a slip. Oh man, I see your van. Oh, you got a bike. Oh, I'm just like, yeah, yeah, let's check it out, sure. But it also kind of worries me a little bit, just a little bit, just because I'll have this mic stuff in there of people wanting to see it, and that makes me a little bit nervous.
Gotta get clever and, like, make some, like, hideaway storage and
I know,
place to put, like, Pelican cases and all that, right? Like, some lock storage.
I
Yeah.
know, I need to. So, do you still talk to Josh pretty frequent?
I do, yeah. We probably talk almost every week, and
Okay,
always through text, but, man, it's cool to see what he's doing, like, wrenching
yeah.
for Dakota and being a
Oh my
mechanic for
gosh,
YT, like and I don't think he ever saw that coming, like, I think the coach thing, he kind of expected, and he was really pursuing that, to be a coach at Lindsey Wilson. But the mechanic thing, I think he's really having fun with that. Yeah.
oh man, I saw him at snowshoe. He looked, he was just you could tell he's just pumped about the whole thing, just being there and
Yeah.
everything. And he's been there multiple times, but like just be wrenching, like being part of that, you could tell he loved the scene. And I'm super happy for him.
Yeah. Likewise. Yeah. It's really cool.
So, since you're a big bike ride, I meant to add, does that lead to another big bike ride? Or does that lead to anything else?
I think there's like, a couple different kinds of people that do the divide. And one is like you get it done, you're like, oh my God, that was insane. That was so hard. Like I'm never gonna do that again. I barely want to ride my bike. And then there's somebody's like, oh my God, like I can't not do this again. And
Yeah,
like, and I definitely fall into that one. I have so many routes I want to do. I definitely want to. Thinking about going to South America makes me pretty uncomfortable, and I definitely want to take some South American trips. I want to ride in Mexico, things like the Trans Virginia route. I heard about and I saw the preview of the East Coast Divide through the Appalachians. It's like
yeah.
it was on bikepacking.com. It was like 5,000 miles and some insane amount of miles. I don't know if I'm up for that one. It's probably really punchy climbing out west. It's pretty big gradual climb. So, um, and then one of the next ones I'd love to do is the Buckeye bicycle route. It's like 8 to 10 days through Ohio and some of the best parts of Ohio. The Wild West route and on bikepacking routes. Yeah, I'd pretty much do all of them. Yeah.
Do you think you would ever put on an event, a bike, like I mean, I know the kind of divide's kind of like not it's just you, but like, would you ever put on like a 2 or 3 day event?
Funny you should say that, as that's been on my brain a ton recently. I actually want to put together like kind of a crazy, weird art mixed with riding thing that may be not so competitive to just be way more fun, and have some obscure
Mhm.
prizes and just like, weird classes and weird obstacles and, cool light tunnels and weird things. And then I saw Crit Cross, like that happened. Did you see that?
No.
This criterium cross race happened this past weekend in November out in California, and it was on like a car racetrack mixed with like a kind of a dumbed down supercross like old school BMX track. And I saw that and everybody was having a good time. And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna mix something like that with like kind of like a weird night vibe race. Yeah.
That would be sweet.
Yeah, so I'm working on that slowly. And if anybody wants to join and help out on that, just shoot me a message.
You should try to now, I don't know if this would work, but the people who put on Blink down in Cincinnati,
Yes.
somehow that'd be sweet.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't checked out Blink, it's like 3D projection mapping throughout the entire city of Cincinnati, and it is just insane. It's such cool artwork. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
the idea, is to mix something like that with a bike event. Um, and not that many things are at night, and it just things are so different at night. So like,
yeah,
yeah, I figured I would do that. Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I think one day at Blink, or maybe it was just a bike ride, and there was over 100 of us downtown. I think it was just a bike ride, and we went through the streets, and it was just so cool because like uh, the people up front would stop, and even if the light was green the other way, they stopped, and we all went through. Then it rotated, and it was just like, man, the community behind it was just so cool because like everyone's
Yeah.
like, man, we're just riding downtown, we're not worrying about anybody. The path is set, and it was just fun.
Yeah. Thousands and thousands of people out for that. It was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, have you been out here yet to Bentonville?
I have only been to Bentonville for Walmart stuff. I've never ridden in Bentonville other than at Walmart, which is pretty embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to come out. And there's a gravel scene out here growing. I think you could do over 100 miles. I've never rode gravel, so uh people tell me I should get into it. But yeah, there's just trails everywhere. And
I'm coming down. Yeah.
Like Dave Huff said, you know Dave, don't you?
Oh, yeah, real
D
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's always like, "Yeah, they build trails, and then they just have enough money to rebuild trails." It's like, yeah, they don't, like, wait, they just is like, "This didn't work, just do it all over again." And
Yeah.
it's stupid.
And like, there's a lot of people that, hate on the Walmart money aspect of it, but
Yeah,
like, if they were going to put their money into something, like, it's pretty incredible how much they've impacted Bentonville, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
it's just such a positive thing. No one I know that's been to Bentonville said that it wasn't good. It's just
yeah.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I had a buddy come through, and he's like, "Hey, we wanna ride, like, some cross country, but we want some jumps, we want this." I'm like, "Ah, that's gonna be there's a long list there." And, I just kinda, like, bounced around different trails that are, like, not real long, just short, but they have jumps or they're whatever, and he goes, "Man, that was absolutely fun." I was like, "Man, I didn't know how that was gonna turn out."
That's so
Yeah.
amazing, man. Yeah, I'm gonna come down and ride with you.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, you hit me the other day, I showed you that, like, trailhead or that hub with the like, a silo looking thing,
Yeah.
and, I took my buddy there the other day, and we rode this trail called, I can't think. Oh, Interplanet Janet. So I was like, "Oh, we'll take it slow or kind of, and then we'll come back, and then we'll ride another one because there's like 6 trails." And we rode it, and then, he goes, "I wanna ride that 2 more times." 'Cause it's 'cause it's got, like,
Oh, man.
slight jumps, and then then after the second, like, tabletop, and then it's, like, down, and you're 2 rock drops, a rock little, like, jump, and then you hit this big jump. It's just I don't know how to explain it, but it has everything. It has like chunk jumps, nice berms, and then it doesn't last long, but yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
I
you got to
just
come
love
down.
that you can, like, use all of your bikes in Bentonville. And everybody's like,
Yeah,
"Arkansas, how good can that be?" And I'm like, "Man, yeah, can't believe I've been sooner."
I think the elevation, people are like like they just think of that like, oh, it's not Colorado, it's not Utah, and they just like, ah, it can't be that good. But they do a really good job of what elevation they do have and making good trails out of it.
Yeah, man. That's the way to do it, right? Work with what you got.
Yeah. So, you've lived in Ohio. So when you traveled around, was there ever a spot you think that you were like, "Man, I could move here," or you're like, it's Ohio forever"?
Yeah, I love Ohio just because, like, we kinda have a little bit of everything, and
Yeah,
anyone who's been to, like, Western Ohio up, like, I-75 is like, "How could you live in Ohio? It's only cornfields and it's just completely flat," but
yeah,
that's not true.
yeah,
Northeastern and Southeastern Ohio have amazing terrain, enough elevation and punchy ass climbs to really beat you up, whether it be on or off road. Um, it's just super affordable here. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, the cost of living is still not outrageous yet, right? I'm sure that's coming, but I really like Asheville, North Carolina. That's a good one.
mhm, yeah,
Tennessee works pretty well. And now, man, after doing the divide, I really think I could live in New Mexico. That was just
Wow.
incredible. I think New Mexico's gotta be one of the most underrated places that, yeah, it's incredible.
I've never been out to check. I've been. That was funny you say that underrated because someone else is like, "Hey, what's New Mexico like?" And then most people just think it's nothing. So I was actually on Trail Forks looking at trails, and they look pretty good. So
Really
yeah,
good. Yeah. Yeah. When we rolled into I was with a couple people when we crossed into New Mexico, and, I mean, you go Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, well, I'm sorry, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico. And so you've seen like the Rockies, and it's insanely beautiful, and like Montana's beautiful. And we came into New Mexico and we all were like, oh my God, like, holy crap, like, this is already probably the most beautiful part of the entire ride. There's just like
really,
pine forest, like carpeted giant valleys of trees. You think of like New Mexico just being all desert, and it's not. There's tons of forests. The ecosystem's cool. The terrain's cool. The little towns are cool. Like, it's just, and they probably have the coolest license plate in the country. So that matters, right?
yeah. Well, what's it look like to see?
Oh man, I forget the name of their symbol, but it's like just yellow with that New Mexico symbol in the center.
Okay, okay, yeah,
And I think every plate looks like a brand new 60-year-old plate. Like, it's cool. It just like looks old school, and it's not, trashy like the new Ohio plate. Sorry, Ohio.
yeah, yeah. I remember back in the day, I felt plates were so cool, and now I'm just like, these are some of these plates are garbage. Like,
Yeah, terrible
make your state.
designs.
Yeah, make your state look good, let it stand out, what
Right.
happened to that?
Yeah.
Uh, so have you gone to Horns Hill in Ohio to
Oh
ride
my
mountain bikes?
God. Have you if you don't know about Horns Hill, I
Ben,
think they've just didn't they raise like 60 or $80,000 and just did a bunch of machine built stuff there. Horns Hill is
yeah,
amazing now. I rode it back in the
yeah,
day, and it was cool when nobody was working on it. And it was just a cool spot. And now, I mean, like, it's definitely putting us, quote unquote, on the map for a cool trail spot. But I mean,
yeah,
it's like it's everything. Like, man, they're
yeah,
doing such a good job. Hats off to those guys, and
yeah,
thanks to Dave Huff for building stuff there. But man, they raised a bunch of money, and it's incredible now.
yeah, I like you I when you're driving up here, or up there, I should say, you don't see it, you're like, "There's nothing up here," and then all of a sudden, it just
Yeah,
kinda pops up, you're like, "Oh, okay," and,
yeah,
yeah, hats off to them, man, they just keep hopefully, they're not running out of hill too much
right,
'cause,
right.
they
Well,
got
they
some
were
good
like
stuff.
going backwards, like into the part that wasn't really even theirs, and they were working it out. I
Yeah,
just think it feels like that's happening everywhere, and there's these little, pockets happening where people are just taking it upon themselves to raise money and make their trails nicer. Like, I know, um, Derek Fetko of On Your Left Cycles in Louisville. Like, I know he works with Kimba and the trails out there, and they
mhm,
have amazing trails down there, and they just sort of take it upon themselves and organize their own trail days, and like, you just see it all the time on Instagram. So, if it's happening in Ohio, it's definitely happening everywhere, but just really
yeah,
grateful that it is happening in Ohio because it wasn't.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's, definitely happened in some spots. Have you ever rode down where Josh is, or, what's the lake?
Oh
With
yeah.
man, what's that called? Right off the exit.
Well,
Uh,
Josh
I
has
don't
been
know.
trying to get me to come down there for a long time, and I feel like a serious jerk for not yet. So I have to get down there and ride with him. I have not.
Yeah, there's a trail so I know the trail that goes to this waterfall, and he's like, "No, no, no, you gotta go past that." And he's like, "There's a loop," and we discussed it, and we were gonna ride it, but then I ended up moving. And, he showed me, like, "Here's the pictures," and, like, awesome. Like, you wouldn't think you're in Kentucky. You no, wouldn't even think you're in Kentucky. And I was like, "That's it?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's where I take the riders from the college." I'm like, "What the?" And I still need to ride it. Just to get to the waterfall is pretty cool because you just it kinda has an Asheville feel to it, but yeah, it's nice stuff down there, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so right now, one of the reasons that I, left, I should say, is because of the off season in that area. And what do you do to stay motivated? Because in that area, I should say, you can just go down a slippery slope, and then you're starting all over come March or whatever winter up. What's something that you like to do in the off season?
For a long time, it was, riding skate parks or going to Rays in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Rays quite as much, and I would love to spend more time at Mike's Bike Park in Dayton. I just haven't, man. So shout out to Mike's. I gotta get there more often. But man, I think I'm dropping in and finally getting on Zwift and getting a trainer for the winter time because like before COVID, I would typically be going to the gym in the wintertime and just sort of like, trying to soak up that weird time of where it's just, you know, 5 degrees here in Ohio and the roads have a bunch of crap and salt and brine on them. And I don't want to ride my road, gravel, or mountain bike. And I'm just kind of being a wuss about it. And now, like I'm starting to become desensitized to the cold weather. I'm going to try and get out more. But typically it's the gym. My wife and I both got into rock climbing in the past couple years.
Yeah.
So we go to the indoor gym in the wintertime and that's really helped with my hand with the recovery of the table saw injury, and that crosses over to the bike just to kind of give me like hand strength and stuff like that, and just keeps me sane and not be thinking about how much I'm not riding in the wintertime. um
Yeah.
I, yeah, but I want to use the van. I want to. I have a few projects to finish up. I have another house to sell in Cincinnati, and then I do want to travel more. So I'm gonna, in the wintertime when my wife's done with grad school, I would like to go south, or even spend part of the wintertime in places like New Mexico and not be here in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that seasonal affective disorder is no joke, and like we just sort of tend to hunker down in the house and not be out as much, and that's not healthy. That's not what I want.
No.
I'm not going to waste my days away.
Yeah, a couple of my buddies, they got on a kick of, well, one started, but they all do it now. In January or February, they'll take a week and go to Florida, and they feel super recharged, and like, okay, we're almost through, but man, did we need that more than anything?
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I agree with you, man. That wintertime can just destroy you, and yeah, you got to do something. It's tough
yeah,
up there.
yeah. And it's like, we get like the super hot summers that are humid, and then we get the super cold winters that are also humid. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you really got to want it here.
Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure. And there's some people there that, there's still some good riders who come out of that area for sure.
that's
Do you
right.
know James Sharf?
I don't. I don't.
I'll have to send you some. He's done the Swiss Epic, Cape Epic. I think one Australia. He was like the only American to do it all in a year.
Where's he from?
He lives in since Hyde Park.
Wow. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed that I didn't know that.
Well, I think he
Man,
moved to the area. I might be misspoken, so I apologize, James. But I think he's not. I think he's kind of new to the Cincinnati area. Not like new as in like a year, but like within 10 years maybe. So, but yeah, he's he's done it all, man.
man, yeah, I'd love to connect with more people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to see if I can connect you guys. But so man, nothing planned. There's something else I was gonna add. You just need to make your way out here and check it out.
I'm
Not
coming to
walk.
Bentonville. It just feels silly that, like, yeah, maybe I waited for a reason because now all the trails are awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
yeah.
so weird here, like, it rained 2 weeks ago, like, 3 days, like, I'm talking downpour, and then I was like, "Well, I guess this weekend's shot." Less than 24 hours out, I was like, "Hey, the trail's good?" The guy goes, "They are primo." I was like, "Well, I don't know what that means here because there's a lot of rocks." So, I'll take his word for it, and I swear it was the grippiest Arkansas dirt I've ever seen in my life. Like,
Ugh.
you could just fly around these berms. I'm like, "Don't change. Just don't ever change."
Yeah, man. How long have you been in Bentonville?
June. Got here in June.
So you haven't been through a winter yet.
No,
Okay.
a funny story. So, about here. So there's 2 different worlds here, 2 different literally worlds. I don't even know how else you wanna put it. There's the mountain bike, that whole scene, and then there's Arkansas in general. Okay. Um, before I go any f all people are super nice, just it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
So you got the bike scene, it's a community no matter what. Then you got everything else, so my 9 to 5 job, and it's like it's like some there's some rough spots, and they are always, "Why'd you move here? people vacation here, stuff like they don't even know there's like a bike scene. I don't think they're like, yeah, we heard there's good trails here. I'm like, what the heck? Literally
Yeah.
5 miles on. Anyway, so speaking of winter, this guy goes, man, it gets cold here. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, it got -20 last year. I was like, in Arkansas? And he's like, yeah. And the guy's like, man, that don't listen to him. I was like, okay. He's like, what he's saying is it got 20 below the normal of what it gets.
Oh my god.
Dude, I
Oh
was
my
like,
god. So which is
I'm not
what? Probably like, isn't it really fair there?
like,
Like 30 some degrees?
yeah, yeah, 20, 30 degrees. So normally it's like 40. And I guess it got to 20. I
So
was
you can
like,
ride all year.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, man.
So speaking of that, I'm in the market for pants. Do you have a recommendation?
Pants?
Yeah, so my buddies are saying, "Hey, get these 100% pants." I've been holding off. I've been literally tight rolling my Eddie Bauer, like the kind of like hiking pants. Work great, but I mean, people look at me like, "What's this guy with these tight roll?"
Yeah,
But so
man,
I don't know.
I got a soft spot for 100%. They helped me a lot out when they were first starting, and gosh, it's like everything they put out seems to be so top notch. So I think that's probably a good direction, man. Yeah.
Okay.
I seem to be
Uh,
changing up a bunch though. Like I started trying out like weird like Patagonia athleisure pants, and I'm
yeah,
actually wearing them right now. And it's just nice to have something that you can ride, exercise, and hang out in. Like I'm kind of sick of having things that like what am my buddy Jared Rafflick at DK always calls those like your pajamas, like the race kits. Like
yeah, yeah.
this crazy colors and weird fabrics that you don't wear on the daily. But I think they've come a long way. But I don't know, man. Yeah, they serve their purpose, right?
Yeah, so I kind of the same thing. I've always left my house. This is a kind of a yeah, in a pair of jeans or some sort of like pants, like you're going out, like
Yeah,
work pants, whatever. And then someone got me a pair for my birthday, like Lululemon, like sweatpants. I'm like, yeah, I'll wear around the house, dude. I wear them everywhere. Like I'll
yeah,
go
right.
anywhere. I'm like, what happened to me? Like I don't even think
Yeah,
twice.
yeah. I think about that
um,
too, and I'm like, man, what would like the me think about me 20 years ago, right? Like, what are
yeah,
you wearing, man? Like, and then I'm like,
yeah,
I just want to be comfortable, and you're like, you're old.
yeah. That's it, that's it.
Yeah,
So, I put it on my, personal Instagram. People were probably like, "Dude, that's me too, man." I put on slip-on pants and Lululemon, slip-on shoes and Lululemon pants, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going out the door. I don't care anymore."
bedrock sandals, my like
Yeah,
Patagonia pants, and t-shirt, and like that's it, man. Yeah, I can go anywhere.
cool, man. Well, I don't wanna keep you. I know it's late where you're at, but, next time we talk, I wanna talk about your, plant-based diet 'cause, that really, intrigues me.
That sounds
But,
good, man.
I don't wanna keep it too much longer. But, hey, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, maybe I'll see
Hey
you in Bentonville.
yeah, actually, I meant to say one thing. I will be in Kentucky the 20th to the 29th, and, I'll have the van, so if you wanna see it.
Okay, let's try and make that work. That'd be cool.
Alright, man. Well, hey, have a good night. Thanks for coming on, and everybody, thanks for listening, as always. See ya.
Thank you.